Hi guys, welcome to Code Decode. So in this particular video, we are going to cover a very important topic, that is how do our Angular application communicates with the backend, that is the REST APIs which is being hosted at the server end. So the very simple solution that Angular provided us is the HTTP client. So basically what is this HTTP client? It is nothing but a solution provided by Angular application so that we can connect our front-end application as far as what we have created till now, right? That was all considered as a front-end application. Now to communicate it with the backend or the REST APIs being hosted at our server end, what do we need? We need nothing but this HTTP client. So there are four simple steps to make our application communicate with REST applications. So for that, let's get started and let's see the code simultaneously when I'm going to cover all the four steps for you. So the very first step to create the HTTP client base, that is to make your Angular application capable enough to use HTTP client into your web application. So the very first thing is to import HTTP client module in your root app module. So this is how you're going to do it. In your ng modules, in the imports, you're going to include HTTP client module, which is from Angular common HTTP. So let's do one thing. I'm going to code side by side with you very slowly. So please open your Visual Studio Code or any of the browsers where, or any of the editors where you want to code and see your results in the browser. And simultaneously, we both together will code and we will see how good this particular thing works around. So let's get started. So the very first thing what we need here is in the app module. Where is our app module? We have, we have browser module, routing module, forms module. We don't have HTTP client module. So what do we have to do for it? We just have to import this particular thing, but for that we need a particular import also. So let's import something. Let's import it from common HTTP. Okay. So let's import something from @Angular. Remember, this is something which people can ask in interviews. So from where are we gonna take this? From the commons module. Why? Because this is common to use the HTTP in the HTTP client form. HTTP client module. Fine. This is how you import your module for the Angular purpose. But now here what are we going to do? We're going to import it in. This is for Angular. We're going to import it here. Fine. So things are compiled successfully for us. Great. So what we have done nothing. We have actually imported nothing but this HTTP client module for us. Fine. I'm going to save it for me. Now let's go back to the second step. So the second step says, so let's see if we have covered first step perfectly. Yes, we have covered the first step perfectly. We have imported from @Angular common HTTP. Now the second step is, this is a very important step. This is something related to your injectable class. So in the previous lecture, I've covered services and dependency injection for you, right? So there I have told you how we can actually get something injected as a into constructor and we can use that particular thing. So we're going to do similar thing into it. Now from the same package, we're going to get the HTTP client, and you will be able to get this HTTP client because you have HTTP client module already installed in your Angular application in apps module, which is a parent module for all your applications binding. So this is why you can easily get this HTTP client object as HTTP. So what is the second step? Second step is nothing but to inject client into required application class or service, which will give to the call to REST APIs. So this is nothing but a service class. So let's get back. Where is my service class? This is my app service class, right? So what I have to do here, similar to app module, what I'm going to do in the same particular import, I'm going to import nothing but my HTTP client and not the module. Fine. Now since I have HTTP client here, what I can do, I can create an object of it in my constructor, and if I have that particular thing in my constructor, I can use it throughout my class, right? So private HTTP : HTTP client. So now what does this make sure? That in this particular app service class, I can actually call nothing but an HTTP client, and I can connect to my REST application. So this is, we are halfway done. We have created an object of HTTP client which will be used for creating the object and calling the application APIs. Now the third step is to use HttpClient.get method with a particular URL. So remember, this is very important. This is how you have injected the HTTP client previously in the constructor, and this HTTP is available here. So I'm going to use this.http.get and I'm going to pass my URL. That this URL is a URL which is being hosted on the server end, which is nothing but a REST API. So what you will do? You will do nothing but call this get thing, but now this get thing will return. What does this get particular method returns? It returns an observable object. So can you see this particular method I have given that I'm going to return an observable object. So what does this particular get method do? It does nothing but sends a asynchronous HTTP request. So remember, very important thing here, that when you do http.get, so somebody would, this is observable subscriber pattern. So this is nothing but a design pattern where there is one subscriber or multiple subscribers and one publisher. So this is my publisher. This publisher will do nothing but sends the request on my behalf, which is an asynchronous way. That is, when this particular thing is going back to the server and getting something on this URL and getting the data back to me, by the meantime my Angular code will continue to work. So this is what is known as asynchronous call. That is, nothing of my code is going to wait for this particular call, because I don't know how much time this particular thing will take to get the return data from the or response from the server. So this is why the Angular people have made this very good decision to make the HTTP call as asynchronous calls. And when the response is received, this observable object, which is nothing but a return type of this particular method, will return the observable, which does nothing but emits the data. Emitting also we have seen in the emitters in the previous videos. So please get a base ready before you go to this particular video, because there's much more things into it, because this is something called as injectable, the services, which is I have covered in the previous videos. So this HTTP client makes use of observables for all transactions. So the second thing you have to import is this RxJS or packages observable class, and this class is nothing but a method to get the response from the HTTP URL and return it to the subscribers. So let's do that, and this is a bit tricky thing, so please bear with me. Here I'm going to do particular code for creating an object get backend data, right? It says what we want to do, correct? I want to get a backend data, but I need it from observable. Now before using observable, what I have to do? I have to import it, correct? So from where I'm going to import it? Remember, this is from RxJS package. This is nothing but a very important utility package where I'm going to get my observables. Now since I have observables here, what I'm going to do? I'm going to get this observable as a return type, and the return type of this particular thing will be object only as of now, because I don't know what this particular API is going to give as a return to me. Observable value not being used as a type here. Okay, fine. So let's first do one thing. Let's make it observable. I'll make this also as observable. And now it says that I have to return something, right? So I'm going to write a return statement. So what return statement do I want here? I want to return nothing but this dot HTTP. What is this HTTP? Now remember, this HTTP is nothing but a private variable which is being injected here, right? And with this dot get method, I'm going to get my URL. So I'm going to use the URL, but that URL is somewhere here, this extract constant, right? So in my service class, I'm going to before getting this URL, what I have to do? I have to import it. So I'll do nothing but import, and I'll leave this empty as of now because I'm going to put a package here. So I'll keep this empty, and from I'm going to ask my particular module itself. I want constants. So from constants, I'm going to do control space and I'm going to get URL here. So can you see I'm good with this particular code, and it says compiled successfully, right? So if you can see, we have completed our third step successfully. What we have done, the first step was to add something in the app module, which is nothing but a client module. If you have the client module, now you can get the HTTP client here as a constructor. Now since you have a constructor, you have created an object of HTTP, and with this HTTP you're going to call a get method which returns nothing but an observable object. So this is nothing but creating an observable subscriber design pattern where we are going to get an asynchronous call to this particular URL, and as soon as I get the response, I'm going to get this in the observable object, and this is nothing but a particular object which is going to call our subscribers as soon as I get this particular object. But remember, observable is of push type. I'm going to cover observable and subscriber in the next video for you in a complete description, but as of now understand what HTTP client, how HTTP client uses observables. So observable will do nothing but a push request to all the subscribers once anybody subscribes to this particular method. So the last and the least step is just go to your component where you want this particular response. In that particular component, you just inject your service. I have shown you how to inject your service in the previous lecture, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in my app component.ts file. Fine. In this app component.ts file, I do have something called as constructor, right? So this is my export class. Now in this particular export class, I am going to create my constructor, which is not I'm having right now. So I'm going to write constructor. In the constructor, this is dependency injection, right? I'm going to create the object service of my type, this particular service, app service, correct? Control V. And I'm going to import, auto import it. This is the very big benefit of Visual Studio Code. It automatically searches and it imports automatically just with my control space. So in this, what I'm going to do, I have my service object now, and I have a very simple thing to do. I'm going to have something called as ng on init. Do we have it? Yes, we do. I've covered in the previous videos, right? So ng on init. Oh, okay. So for using ng on it, you have to implement nothing but a particular class. But before that, let me do one thing for you. init. And in this particular method, what I'm going to do, I'm going to call this dot service dot. I have this method already given to me as a particular option. So in this particular thing, when I call this particular method, I'm going to subscribe. Why is it allowing me to subscribe? Normal method will not allow me to subscribe. Why is it allowing? Because it returns me an observable object, and hence this is allowed of subscribing to an observable method. So I'm going to get response from it, right? So if I'm getting a response, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that response and I will alert that for you. So in alert, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say I'm going to get a response in an object form. RESP. Okay, so as of now, I'm going to alert you with that response itself, and we are going to debug this particular code, right? Now it says compiled successfully, but there is an error in the component.ts file that the property does not exist on type app service. Just a second, let's get into it. It's a public thing. Let's successfully compile it. It says compiled successfully. It was just an issue of compilation. So when I clicked subscribe, everything is working for me. Now in the localhost 4200, it says welcome to the Angular world, and as soon as I do this, it says this. So let's debug it first, right? So I'm doing F12. What does F12 does for us? It opens the debugger console. So I'm going to source and I'll open this in a new doc window so that it is visible to you clearly. I'm going to put two debuggers here. So what to do for debugger? Just click on the particular line where you need a debuggers. I'm going to reveal in my sidebar and I'm going to see where is my service. So this is my service. I'm going to debugger here also. And now let's reload. So F5, and now as soon as it reloads, it says that this particular service is going to get a response. Now I got my URL. If I do F8, what will happen? This alert is called. So when I see my response, I'll open it in a watch box for you. So what do you see? It says this is a user ID, this is title, this is completed. Now I have my response received from that particular REST API. The URL I have shown you previously. This is the URL and I've got the response. So this is as simple as that. So if you have issues with this particular working of HTTP client, please let me know in the comment section. I'm going to cover observable subscriber in the videos very soon. So if you have something issue with this particular thing, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you.